Welcome to another sales series webinar where I, Patricia Fripp, interview one of the smartest people I know, Dr. Tony Alessandra. Now, perhaps you're familiar with Tony. If you are, you know that he is streetwise and college smart, and that's how he looks at business and sales in a very entertaining way. You probably know he's a PhD in marketing. He's written over 30 books that have been translated into 50 foreign languages, as well as hundreds of video and audio training programs. And we will have a great conversation. He will help us understand how do we sell to people, your prospects, the way they really want to be sold to, so that we develop relationships rather than just closing sales. Because as you know, relationships last forever, not just a one-time shot. A very important part of our partnership is Paul. He will help you understand how you can talk to us. We will ask you to participate in a couple of polls, and you can ask us short, specific questions about the content that you hear from Tony and me a little later on. So, Paul, take it away.
Hello everyone. On the right hand side of your screen you will see a chat box. Within that chat box you'll be able to enter your short specific questions throughout the call that will be answered live. Remember to get the questions in sooner rather than later so we have time to cover your questions during the call. In addition to the chat box, in that area of the screen near the bottom there will be polling questions that come up throughout the call. Select your answer, click vote, and then we'll discuss the results during the call.
And the first poll that will come up, Paul, after Dr. Tony has given us some information is?
Once Tony explains what the DISC program is and what the assessments means, then we will ask you what your specific category is.
All right. Well, if you're familiar with Tony's work, you might have an idea before we start. But welcome, Tony, and tell us, how on earth do we know how our prospects want us to sell them?
Well, thank you, Patricia. Glad to be here. One of the key things is in selling, as in medicine, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. You know, how could you possibly sell somebody something without understanding their needs and their style from their point of view? There's two key things here in terms of understanding the customer. Number one, we need to understand the customer's needs, because that tells us what to buy, or at least what to sell. I'm sorry. And we need to understand the customer's style, because that tells us how to sell. Now, I'm going to focus primarily on their style, and Patricia, I'm going to let you take their needs and basically how to adjust the presentation style. I'm going to talk about really the behavioral style. So what we want to do is make sure that we learn how to adjust our selling style to fit the customer's buying style. Now, what is the customer buying style? Many of you are familiar with a concept called DISC. DISC is an acronym for a four-style behavioral concept. The D stands for dominance, or some people use the term director or driver. The I stands for influence. Some people use the term socializer or expressive style. The S stands for steadiness, which some people also say amiable or a relator. And finally, the C is for conscientiousness, which we may call the analytical thinking style. So those are the four basic patterns of behavior. You need to understand that each of these styles absolutely communicate and buy differently. Some buy slower, some buy faster, some want to develop the relationship before getting down to business, others want you to get right down to business. So let's look a little bit at each of those four styles. I want to give you an overview so you get an idea of what they're like. Let's start with the D. The D's, their key desire, results, bottom line. Their motto, I want it done right, I want it done now. Better yet, I want it done yesterday, because they're in a hurry for everything. They juggle a lot of things at the same time and do them well. They're great administrators, delegators. They work best under pressure, under deadlines, and they play to win. You know that old saying, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. And that is true of the Ds. Rarely, if ever, will you see a D play a game for funsies. Oh, let's not keep score. Yeah, forget about it. They always want to know how well they're doing. So one issue with them is they're not the best listeners because they tend to already know the answer. They don't have the time. So it's important that you get their focus when you're presenting to them. But that's a little bit about the D. So let's talk a little bit about the I, the more influential, expressive, socializing pattern. The I's, their key desire: fun, excitement, applause, recognition, visibility, and as a result, they talk a lot about their favorite subject, themselves. Generally speaking, the I's are generally speaking because they have the gift of gab, the power of persuasion, the ability to get other people more excited about their ideas than even they are themselves. I call them the verbal Pied Pipers. Believe it or not, as persuasive as they are, in my opinion, they're the easiest to sell because they're not detail-oriented. They like the big picture. And if something sounds good, looks good, feels good, they're in. You know, I want it too. So the I's, one of their problems is they tend to generalize. They're not as much detail-oriented. And they tend to take on more than they actually finish. There's a saying that I use for the I's. When all is said and done, more is usually said than done. So let's talk a little bit about the S's. So you see the difference here in terms of what they're like and how they interact. The D's, the I's, now the S's, the steady style, more amiable, the real relators. Their key desire is for harmony, safety, security, close one-on-one relationships. They're the true people. They love being part of a group. They're the glue that holds a group or a team together. In fact, show me a married couple where one of the spouses is a high S style, and I will show you a long marriage. Not necessarily happy, but long. So they're the true blue, loyal people, great listeners, incredible empathy. When they listen, they don't just listen to the content, they also listen to the intent, to the facts and the feelings. They focus on all three elements of communication, face-to-face communication: the verbal, the vocal, and the visual. I will tell you about the S's. When it comes to making decisions, anybody who is affected by the decision, they want to get involved. So it's important that when you're dealing with an S, especially in a selling situation, if you, through your pre-call research, determine that a committee is making a decision, or if it's a husband and wife and you're only talking to one of them, try your best to get all the people who will participate in that decision. Get them together at one time. Because if you don't, you will then be presenting to the S, and then the S will be presenting to everybody else. And I can assure you that the S presenting will not be as powerful as you presenting. So make sure you get everybody involved. Now, I will tell you this, the S's, their feelings get hurt very easily. So it's almost like walking on eggshells in a sense. So, don't challenge them. Don't come on too aggressive. Just, build credibility with them before trying to build business. And of course, the last style is our C, the conscientious, cautious, analytical thinker. Accuracy, precision, perfection. Their motto: everything in its place and a place for everything. Their patron saint, Spock, from Star Trek, right? So people that probably are tough to sell, especially for the I salespeople who like to do the big picture, tend to generalize. Not with a C. The C's, I would say of all four styles, they are arguably the most intellectual. People like Einstein, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, probably C styles, very precise, accurate. So if you want something done right, give it to a C. But if you want it done on time, think again, because they tend to procrastinate getting finished until it's, what do you think? Perfect. They often suffer from paralysis by over-analysis. So 4 styles. The D's, the dominant patterns, the I's, the more influential patterns, the S's, the steady patterns, and the C's, the cautious or conscientious patterns. So Patricia, those are the 4 basic patterns. And as you can see, because they're so different, you really need to approach them differently and sell them differently.
Tony, I often have salespeople call and call up hearing of feedback. Can you do something about that? Okay, it's taking care of itself. Good. Tony, I have salespeople call me, and the first question they ask is, how are you? I always respond busy, specifically, what can I do for you? What would that tell the salespeople?
That should tell the salespeople to adapt. The whole key here, Patricia, is to adapt. Adaptability is your ability to change your approach or change your style depending on the situation or the person you're dealing with. So with you tend to be task-oriented. If somebody opens that way and you say what you say, it's a real significant hit on the head that I better get right down to business and do it quickly. So,
I also have a habit, Tony, when salespeople call me, I say, you obviously don't know who you called, but lucky for you that I'm a sales presentation skills trainer, and the script that you're working from does not work. You need to redo it this way. And so what would that tell them, that I'm rewriting this script even though they interrupted me?
Well, so now you're going into, see, everybody doesn't necessarily have a single style, like a 100% DISC. In fact, in my online assessment business, assessments24x7.com, we have had hundreds of thousands of people take the online DISC assessment, and the pure styles, just a pure D, a pure I, a pure S, a pure C, is only about 5%. What we see are combinations. So when you open up saying, I'm busy, I get a sense you're obviously fast-paced, but because it was very direct, I would say more of a D. And then the correcting somebody may bring out a little bit of your C style. And you do have a C style. You're very precise about things. You're very accurate about things. When I want to polish either a story in my presentation or basically almost anything, I go to you because I know you can look at it, get to the point right away, but you're very precise. So I'm hearing maybe a D, C, which means, hey, I'm going to move quickly, I'm going to be task-oriented, I'm going to get to the point, and I'm going to give some facts, some proof, some documentation, rather than just talk in generalities.
All right, good. And would you think, Tony, it's important to know about you first? So is this a time we should see what our listeners think about themselves if they know?
Absolutely. Why it's important to know your own style is because it tells you what direction to move when you're adapting with people. But the question is, let's look at this 2 ways, Patricia. The 2 ways being, okay, I'm going to tell you right now how you can size up a customer. But as I describe it, I'm also describing how to size up you, the viewer, all right? So what I like to do is I like to take complex subjects and simplify them and make them practical. My two key operating words, everybody who knows me, everybody who knows how I teach, how I write, my two key words are simplicity and practicality. How can I make something simple so that you understand it and get it right away? Number two, how can I make it usable and practical so you can go right out and use it effectively in the field? So this whole concept of behavioral styles and DISC, I'm going to ask you to make two simple decisions about people based on what you see and what you hear. Decision number one, is the person coming across more open or guarded? Now, how do you tell the difference between being open or guarded? Guarded people do not show or share their feelings and thoughts readily or willingly. In other words, they play their cards close to the vest. They're hard to read. They have limited, controlled body language and facial expressions. To the extreme, we may say they have, a poker face. Whatever they're feeling or thinking inside tends to stay inside. Right? They hold these things tight, close. When they greet you, it tends to be maybe a little bit further apart, maybe arm's length. They're not huggers and touchers. So they keep a distance, not just mentally, but physically. These are the type of people that when they make decisions, it tends to be factual, get to the point, don't waste my time. We just heard that from you, Patricia. Hey, I'm busy. So that's what the guarded people are like. And by the way, both the D's and the C's tend to be more guarded. So there we go. When you're with let's say a guarded person, they want you to get down to business. They do not like much, if any, chit-chat or small talk or schmoozing, whatever you want to call it. They want you to get right to the point. Now, at the opposite end, we have open people. Open people readily and willingly show and share their feelings and thoughts, whether you want to know them or not. Any subject, anytime, fair game. They tend to digress a lot from conversations. As you're talking to them, they go off on, this way, this way, this way. And sometimes you say, or they say, what were we talking about? Because they get so far afield, they don't remember what the question was. So I sometimes, when you're dealing with a very open person, I jokingly say their thoughts are like gumballs. They just fall to the tongue and roll out. No censoring, Patricia. So now when they get together with you, they tend to be more touchers, huggers, closer greeters and communicators. Whatever they're feeling or thinking inside tends to be seen and heard outside. They wear their hearts on their sleeves. You've heard that term before. They like to do a little bit of, let me get to know you before we get down to business. Now, I realize that many of you listening to this would say, well, I have a little bit of both. But I'm wondering, if you asked a representative group of people if you were more open or guarded most of the time, what would they say? Would they say that most of the time you come across more guarded, or most of the time you come across more open? And what I'd like you to do is pick one of those two. Do you feel most people would say you're more open or guarded? Now remember, when we're sizing up a customer, what we want to do is to monitor what they say, how they say it, their verbal, vocal, visual behavior, and try to make that same decision about a customer. Are they coming across more open or guarded? All right? So that's decision number one. Decision number two, just two decisions. Is the person more direct or indirect? Now, directness is a measure of pace. Directness is a measure of assertiveness. Directness is a measure of patience, believe it or not. We find that the indirect people, so we have direct and indirect. Indirect people are slower paced. Direct people faster paced. Indirect people more patient. Direct people impatient. Indirect people less assertive. Direct people more assertive. Indirect people tend to ask more than they tell. Just the opposite for direct people. They tend to tell more than they ask. when it comes to risks, decisions, and change. And tell me, as a salesperson, you don't deal with this on every single call every day. Risks, decisions, change. Indirect people approach all three more slowly, cautiously, methodically, because they don't want to be wrong. And as a result of not wanting to be wrong, they tend to check, double check, think about it, sleep on it, do their homework, their research, their due diligence, because they don't want to be wrong. Direct people, risks, decisions, change, they approach all three more quickly, decisively, sometimes even spontaneously, because their inner driving need is to accomplish and achieve as much as possible, get it over with, what's next?
Yeah.
So imagine a direct salesperson selling an indirect customer and not adjusting. Or the opposite. Let's say a guarded salesperson selling an open customer. Well, let's get back to direct and indirect. Again, go back to that representative group of people that you deal with maybe at work or on a day-to-day basis. And if you ask them, do I come across most of the time more direct or indirect? What would they say? Now, as you answer that, as you come up with that decision, you should have two words. You should have either open or guarded, and you should have either direct or indirect. And when you put those two together, you actually have the 4-disc style. So if you said that you were direct and guarded, you're a D style. If you said you were direct and open, you're an I style. If you said you were indirect and guarded, you're a C style. Indirect and open, you're an S style. Now, just out of curiosity, let's see what our mixture of styles is. So, Paul, can we bring up the first polling question? And this polling question is basically asking you to click whether or not you are a D, an I, an S, or a C. Dominant, influential, steady, or conscientious.
Now, right now, Tony, Paul, we've had our sitting there for a while. I'll let you tell Tony. I've had a sneak peek, but you tell Tony what they've come up with, and then you can make an assumption, Tony, who is more likely to sign up for our web events.
That's right.
Okay.
We have a majority 44% dominant, 16% influential, 24% steady, and 16% conscientious.
Wow. So 60% are direct, 40% indirect. Give me those percentages again. 60-40, which, by the way, fits right around what the numbers are after hundreds of thousands of these being done online using the actual validated questionnaire. So what about, tell me the DISC again?
That was actually in order of DISC, 44%, 16%, 24%, and then 16% again.
Wow, okay. So we have guarded 60% and open 40%. Very interesting. Okay. So we do have mostly D styles, which is quite interesting. And we better speed this up, Patricia, because we have so many D's and I's. You know, they like the stories, but they also want us to move on. So that's very, very good to know. Let's move on.
All right. So, all right. So we understand our style. We're getting used to identifying now. Because I know I just had a perfect example, being more of a DI person.
Right.
I'm a client, and it won't surprise you, it was in the financial services. They'd seen me speak. Then, I mean, the amount of layers, it was more like the old days. They fly someone in to see you speak, even though you're all over the internet. So, and one of the executives said, you know, really, I'm making the decision, but we get everybody else involved. I'll make the decision Thursday. And I said, well, I know you don't like to make decisions that fast as a group, so there's no need for you to confirm it yet, because I knew from the Speakers Bureau that they take forever. So you can also tell Tony, and maybe this is a point I'd like you to emphasize, there are types of industries and cultures that you know the majority of people in the company is going to be this way.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that we do, we actually have an assessment called the DISC Career Management Assessment. And what it does is, once we know somebody's unique combination, the pattern of DISC, because we give percentages. So it's not just, hey, you're a D. We give percentages of DISC. And that tells us what occupations the person would gravitate toward. We use the occupational network, the ONET codes from the US government. But if you look at industries in general, it's pretty obvious that, let's say, the Ds, for instance, would be certainly stockbrokers, no question about it. Maybe even newspaper reporters or editors, because they work best under deadlines, fast-paced. That's how you have to look at this. We look at what occupations require fast-paced, task-oriented people. Those are the Ds. What occupations want fast-paced, open people, and we will find sales, more general sales. We might find maybe if we want to get extreme, a cruise ship social director, where they have to be very people. Public relations. For the S styles, again, the S styles are open and indirect or slower paced, people-oriented. We would probably find them as lower grade elementary school teachers. We would find nurses, all right? And the C's, the more technical, analytical, computer programmers, accountants or CPAs, etc. So yes, they do gravitate unquestionably to industries and occupations.
And is it true, Tony, if we understand our style, if we identify with our customers, it is our responsibility as a sales professional to adapt to the client?
No, absolutely. There's no question about it. I remember, Patricia, when I was working my way through college, I actually sold door to door in New Jersey. So Jersey was my target market. I was selling cookware or pots and pans door to door. Now, again, I was only 19 and 20 years old and didn't know the more sophisticated aspects of selling, such as adaptability. We were only taught how to give a really razzle-dazzle pitch, how to overcome objections and close the sale. But if I knew then what I know now, it would have helped me so much. For instance, I'm in a home, I'm selling to somebody, I'm using a 3-ring binder, and so in this 3-ring binder, I have to talk about the left-hand side page and the right-hand side page. Every so often, when I finish the right-hand side page, I would turn it, and somebody would say, wait, go back, and they do that 2 or 3 times, and it should have been a hint to me to slow my presentation down. But more often than not, because this was Jersey, I would be on the left-hand page, and they'd lean over and turn the right-hand page, saying, I'm done, I read it. So I should have sped up a little. It really is important to understand from the aspect of adaptability. I'm going to give you the simplest thing. So rather than get into so much nitty-gritty, bullet points about what to do and what not to do, let me give you something that absolutely today you can go out and start using. If you identify somebody as more guarded, right? So the D's or the C's, when you are dealing with them, get down to business right away, stick to business, and have the facts. Do not overwhelm the D's with facts, but you could with the C's. Now, when you're dealing with let's say the S's and the I's, what you want to do is make sure it's relaxed, it's relationship-oriented, you're developing the trust and credibility, but you're doing it at a faster pace with the I's, a little bit slower, more relaxed, comfortable pace with the S's. So the key here is, am I going to focus on facts or feelings, on tasks or relationships? The other side of this, in terms of adaptability and adjusting your selling style to fit the customer's buying style, is, am I going to speed up or slow down? So with the people who are indirect, the S's and the I's, I want to slow down my pace, all right? But remember, I'm slowing down my pace to build a relationship with the S's, or to cover all the details and facts with the I's, but at a slower pace. At the other end, the direct styles, the D's and the I's, I want to go faster, and with the faster, it's more banter and playfulness, moving in and out, but in a, but still going down the path to the goal with the I's. But with the D's, I want to move quickly, be focused, be prepared, get to the point, and get out. So the key here, one more time, with the D's, I want to move quickly and be task-oriented. With the I's, I want to move quickly, be relationship-oriented. With the S's, I want to slow down, be relationship-oriented. And with the C's, I want to slow down but be fact-oriented. So that's the simplest thing that I can give you in terms of adjusting your selling style to fit the customer's buying style. But Patricia, there's a second part to this that I think is as crucial, and that is understanding the customer's needs. See, I'm talking about the customer's style, but understanding the customer's needs, because the customer's needs tells you what to sell. So, I really want to know some of the tips, some of the pointers, maybe not so much about doing a needs analysis, but in terms of actually the presentation process when we're in a sales environment. So what would you comment on that?
Well, I will tell you the advice I give, and you can add, Tony, if there's any way that you would change that with any style. Is that a good deal?
Absolutely.
So I work on the principle, and this totally is enforcing what you were saying. That is, everybody is more interested in themselves than you. If you work on that principle, you will never go wrong. What you are telling us, you need to understand them more to know what that means to them. So I always say is the key to connection is conversation. The secret of conversation is to ask questions. And the quality of the information you receive will depend on the quality of your questions. And the standard sales presentation that we've heard for years, which some of my clients, sophisticated companies, when I go in, this is still the model. Basically, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is how long we've been doing it. This is our unique methodology or widget. This is who we've served, and I would love, we'd love to add you to our list of satisfied clients.
Me.
Exactly, so you need to turn it around. Now, my approach is you don't want to sound the same as everybody else. So never thank people for their time. You want to be respectful, but it's thank you for the opportunity to discuss how the Fripp training could be exactly what you're looking for. Now, let's just say the first call, and it's probably going to be on the phone. Maybe you walk in and talk to people. But even on the phone, you can tell how they answer what this style is more likely to be. Isn't that right, Tony?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Busy, what can I do for you? I'll call later. I'll be just as busy then. Specifically, what can I do for you? That's my approach. So good. So first of all, assuming that this is a good time to talk, to find out if there is a real need and interest, you need to ask them questions. So quality questions. When over the years people have said, do you have a website? I have a 2,800-page website that brings me more business than I can handle. What is your next question? If people don't know, this is a perfect example, and I'm a great believer with the framework, but somebody called me 2 weeks ago and said, we have a lot of our clients looking for your types of services. So then I answered a few questions. Then he said, oh, Patricia, what does your business do? Now, you just lied to me up front. because you said this is an opening line that is designed to get my attention, but I just caught you in a lie. I'm not going to trust you.
Mm.
So outlines and scripts are good. But anyway, so it's you ask questions. You want to find out what are their challenges. Do they have any major challenges? And if somebody calls you, if somebody is calling me for presentation skills training, my first question is, specifically what happened that made you suddenly search for sales presentation skills training?
That's a good question, because when it comes to questions, there are, if we can simplify it, closed-ended, which require like one word or a yes or a no, and there's open-ended questions which allow people to elaborate. So that's a good open-ended question.
Good. The next one, and often I hear something, well, we just lost a sale we really thought we were going to get. Or, we have a new sales manager and he's looking at our results and they're not as good as the last company he worked with. But then I will say, now at this point you notice, and often they might ask me, how do you work with companies or what's the price? I'm ignoring all that because I only want to talk to them. So what is, basically, why are you looking for someone like me? 2, may I ask, especially if they told me that they lost a big sale they expected, how big was the sale? And it might be 20,000, it might be $250,000. And then I'll say, oh, that must have hurt.
Mm. Patricia, let me just add something here. When it comes to asking questions and listening and communicating, okay, so it's a back and forth. When somebody says, well, I lost a big sale, there's a technique called the echo technique where you can say back to them, just sort of what you did, but this is a little different way, lost a big sale? Or what was the other one that you said, the other example?
Well, we've got a new sales manager who thinks the results in his last company were higher than ours.
Okay, so again, an echo can be higher than yours.
Yeah.
Something echoing it back to get them to elaborate.
Exactly, and I know we learned this from Rick Barrera very well. He's brilliant.
Absolutely.
How I usually actually say is, if I may ask, is that a big sale, a little sale, or an average sale? Then I'm sure you keep statistics, how many presentations you give, how many percentage end up in a closed sale, and then how many salespeople you have. So I want to know, and this is very much learned from Alan Weiss. So if people say, well, we closed 2 out of 3, I'm going to say, well, that's terrific. That's better than a lot of my clients. And then I might say, well, and on a scale from 1 to 10, how good do you think your sales people are at delivering the presentation? And often I hear 6. Or they range between, we've got some who are 8 and some are 4. And I said, well, if we increased everybody's percentage of quality of presentation, another 2 points. So the 8s, let's say they could be 9, and the 4s, we could probably get them up to 7. What would that be worth to you? And they have to do the math. One, I'm not good at math in my head, but you always want the client to come up with how much it would probably mean to them. Now, this is long before we talk about the investment in how we're going to train them. So how is that so far, Tony?
You're masterful. You're creating need, and when they come up with that number, which will be multiples of what you would charge, you now appear to be really quite an inexpensive investment in increasing their sales.
Now, often what I say, Tony, and see how this works for you, because I love getting free advice from my celebrity guests who are experts in different areas of sales. Often I'll say, of course, I'm going to end up and tell them or work on an outline and get to them, but often I say with a straight face, based on the amount of sales that you are losing, my fee is totally inconsequential.
And it is. So that's a great point. Another thing that just might be used, not necessarily by you, but anybody in a situation like that, would be what investment would you make in order to capture just 50% of all those sales that you've lost? You know,
Good.
Something along that line. But
Good.
either way is great. It works.
Perfect. And both Tony and I are great believers that as much as you love our information, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this statistic, Tony, and I call it the dirty little secret in the training industry. When you have great speakers, and you probably know both Tony and I are Hall of Fame keynote speakers, so we're seasoned and we are known for building great rapport with our audiences with great information, and hopefully we've proved that we have some good information for you, even with an audience that is really anxious to hear and learn. 2 weeks after the training, they have forgotten 70% of what they heard. Now, the 30% can make a major difference. But what, Tony, would it do for our clients if over the course of ongoing, consistent repetition and reinforcement, they could in fact retain not only 100% of what we taught them, but also a lot more than we didn't have time for?
It's incalculable. Again, it's the key here is what we want people to do. We can't get people to remember everything with one exposure to us, nor can we, even if they did remember it all, which does not happen, nor can they master the material. That only happens if we can chunk the material, bite-sized pieces over an extended period of time, and have repetition, repetition, repetition. So that's the key.
Paul, why don't we show quick samples of some of our information? So if you can start, Tony, which of your clips would you like to show a sample of?
Well, let's do the introduction to my DISC virtual training. It's a whole course, numerous little segments that take you from the very beginning of DISC, just like we were doing in our interview here, but much more in depth, much more structured, from the very beginning of DISC all the way through how to identify people's styles, and then how to use the material in selling people and managing teams and in managing other people. So what we'll see is maybe, let's do maybe about a minute or a minute and a half of an introduction so you can get a feel for the quality. These are not just videos. These are interactive learning pieces, and after every one of these pieces, and I'm sure the same is true for you, Patricia, I must have, oh my gosh, 50, 60 little segments, anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 minutes. After every segment, you get a quiz question, at least one, and at the end, you actually get a 20-question exam. The key is to make sure that you're giving them the material in bite-sized pieces. So let's just look at the introduction to this whole DISC virtual training. So Paul, if you can take it away.
All right, Tony, can you see the virtual you?
All right, and now we're back.
Okay, good, perfect. All right, wonderful. So It's just a matter, everyone is so busy that with the virtual training, it's on demand whenever you want. You can use it on your mobile devices because everyone is busy. So now Paul, let's go over and actually go to, first of all, Fripp VT and show them how you would get into the systems. Then we show you how you get into Tony's. And while Paul is bringing up Fripp VT, we will look at how you can take a trial. You're very welcome to take a trial, and you'll have a free chapter on sales, the first chapter of the sales course, and openings of presentations and stories, which certainly in every presentation you need to have good stories. So you could, here we are, Paul, there, you did a good job bringing that up. Just circle people and show them where the trial is, and then the join now. There's the trial, and there's the join now. Perfect. So we're going to take you over to the training center. Paul is signed in. Let's do the opening of Superstar Sales presentations.
Life is a series of sales situations. Every day you sell yourself, your ideas, your value, your point of view, your product, or your service. Every sales conversation and presentation is a missed or captured opportunity. If you sound the same as everybody else, you have no advantage. This course is looking at what you are learning about effective presentations, specifically as it relates to the sales process. When you learn how to use the right language in a more effective way, you enjoy a competitive edge in both your sales conversations and presentations. You will have a seemingly unfair advantage if your competition does not know what you are about to learn.
Good. Okay, Paul, that's fine. If you come back to us now, that is great. And Tony, we should see if there are any questions. Yeah, there are quite a few. So for a while, let's just quickly answer the questions, and then we will take you to show you how you can get into Tony's VT system. So take it away, Paul.
All right, this question is for Tony. This is from earlier. If you want it done on time, which personality style do you give it to?
Well, if you want it done on time, I would give it to a D. Absolutely, unquestionably.
All right, and then are you familiar with the BANK, B-A-N-K personality system?
Yes, I am.
How does this compare?
Well, they're similar. There's a lot of 4-style models out there. There's the Platinum Rule, there's social styles, there's True Colors, there's BANK, there's DISC, so there's many out there. The beauty is that they're all based on the 4-style model. I would say the person who created BANK, I know who it is, probably has not been working on this concept as long as I have. I've been working on this 4-style behavioral pattern, what is it now, 42 years. You know, this DISC virtual training is quite unique, and then the whole online assessment process where you can do an online DISC assessment, a DISC sales, a DISC leadership, a DISC service, a DISC coaching, it goes on and on. Even a DISC collaboration where you can actually compare two people and see what they're like and how they might mesh or clash.
All right, and then quickly you talked about one-on-one selling. What about something in a group setting where you're doing a presentation to multiple people? Okay,
so this is not asked very often, but it's a very good question. I want to know who will drop out the quickest and who will stay the longest in a presentation. And pretty much you got to look at the fast-paced people. So I want to know, I want to meet the needs of a D first, an I second, and then more likely a C third, and S fourth. So basically, you know that old saying, and Patricia, you're probably really familiar with this, tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. The three basic aspects of a presentation. So With a group, you might want to say something like, and I'm doing this from the top of my head, so bear with me. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to present today is I want to talk about the bottom line benefits of what you get from this and what makes it so exciting and unique and different and appealing to other people, and the specific pointers and how-tos of how it works and the impact it has on communications and group coherence. Notice what I just did there. In one lengthy sentence, I hit the needs of the D first, the I second, right? The D, here's the bottom line benefits. The I, this is what makes it so exciting, unique. The S, excuse me, the C, we're going to get into the how-tos and specifics, and then how it builds the cohesiveness of a group or a team or a relationship. So the D, the I, the C, and the S. So a little twist there. So I do that for the introduction. Then I get into the presentation, make sure I cover it in that order, the D, the I, the S, the C. And then at the end, I'm going to summarize it the same way, summarizing it with the benefit for a D, an I, an S, and a C.
All right, and if I were going to coach you, Tony,
and I know you will, Patricia.
I think that's fabulous, and I would love to run my presentation from you through your DISC process. But one, I train people not to say so much what I'm going to tell you. It's more as what you will hear, what we will present. Perfect. So my model, and see how this fits in, Tony, is one. So once you've had the conversation, you ask all the questions. You're at the point where we're actually giving more of a formal presentation. There are decision makers around, and Tony's advice would certainly help identify the personalities beyond the roles. That is invaluable. But I always recommend we say congratulations, and congratulate them on what they are proud of, because they're more interested in them than us.
Right.
Then, thank you for the opportunity to discuss, how our service could be a good fit for yours.
Exactly.
Then, at this point, if you are not formally introduced, I say, in case we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Patricia Fripp. And in my role as your project manager or whatever it is, I like to give the impression, Tony, I already belong to you even though you haven't said yes. I'm in my role as yours, and then you can feel confident that I've worked with companies with your similar challenges or complexities for 15 years. And then it's, if you probably had a hero that got you to this appointment. You don't start with a formal presentation to the board of directors or the senior level. So you say, thank you, Tony. He was very generous with his time and information. And he says your major challenges are A, B, C, D. Or your biggest opportunities are A, B, C. And then you frame your conversation around their challenges, challenge 1, challenge 2, or the opportunities, or the areas of interest, whatever words are more appropriate.
Right. And Patricia, the interesting thing is, what I talked about was adjusting to style, and what you're talking about is adjusting to need, exactly what we were talking about earlier, right? The needs dictate the solution. The style dictates the approach. So beautiful, beautiful. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, Patricia and I are a great team. If you're going to go through the virtual training, it really shouldn't be one or the other. It really should be both, because they really mesh. There's no clash in terms of what we cover. It's a great meshing of ideas. So.
And you're lucky, Tony, one of my best VT clients is actually tuned into us. So
good.
If you can bring up Tony's VT system, I will look down at some of the questions. Let's see. Okay, I'm just trying to see if there's.
Well, I have one for you.
Okay.
Is how do EQ and DISC relate to each other?
Well, EQ gets into a little bit different content area. That they both focus on your emotional intelligence. There's no question about it. DISC is a way to connect with other people, which is part of emotional intelligence. They're just different concepts, but both they kind of sync up together. They blend together. So they are different, but yet they all go to the same end result of really understanding and connecting with people.
All right, good. And can you, let's see, I'm just, with Paul being in charge, I can't always see where we are with the questions, but Paul, here's Tony's ready to bring up. So Tony, what would you like us to do? Have a tour?
Yeah, so this is my VT. You can go in here and take a tour, see some of the video clips, see what the courses are, what the pricing is, testimonials. So here's the tour. So there's a whole bunch of video segments here, not just segments about the DISC VT. I put a whole bunch in here that you might like to see. So whether you get involved in my video training or not, you might want to come here and take the tour. The first 3 are about the DISC virtual training, and then I get into some others that I think you might enjoy. The courses, if we can click on that very quickly, it tells you that there are 3 courses: the DISC virtual training program, and it gives you all the course names and chapters. Let's scroll down a little. The second part of all this, keep going, is the DISC assessment. You can actually take the DISC assessment 2 ways. You can take it within the DISC virtual training, or you can actually take it through assessments 24/7. Does not matter. Let's go to number 3 now. And number 3 is really interesting. It's the online communications coach, where if you know what style you're dealing with, and even if you don't know what style, it has a couple of questions to help you determine whether they're more open, guarded, direct, or indirect. And you know how you want to deal with the person. Let's say in a sales situation, let's say exploring their needs or confirming the sale. It actually will give you 2 or 3 bullet points on specifically what to do in a particular situation with one of the 4 styles. So let's go back to the home page there. All right. So there's pricing. We don't have to go on that. There's testimonials, et cetera, et cetera. So it really walks you through everything about my VT. I will tell you that Fripp's page is prettier because Fripp is prettier. But other than that, we all have the information here. So Fripp, back to you, please.
Okay, well, thank you. So Paul, are there any more questions that we need to handle, burning questions? Those that we cannot handle in this call, if they're for Tony, he will answer them offline, as I will if they're for me.
I think that'll be good for now, and then any additional questions, I'll make sure that Tony gets them so he can answer them via email.
Okay, perfect. We appreciate that you have spent time with us, and hope you will check out Fripp Virtual Training and take a trial, and you go over and take a tour of Tony's also DISC Virtual Training, and Paul will put in the side asset the links for both of those that you can have afterwards. So Tony, let's give the last words linger for our listeners. So from Fripp, remember, repetition and reinforcement, and everybody is busy, and the biggest excuse of I can't take training is I am too busy. If you would commit 5 to 10 minutes a day with any of our learning systems, and how about Monday Fripp, Tuesday Tony, Wednesday Fripp, or whatever works for you. We would love you to invest, but we want you to actually get the benefit, because the investment is totally minuscule compared to the value. So repetition and reinforcement. And what I would encourage you to do is from Tony's description. And remember, you will get a replay link. If you are not live, you will get the replay link and you can watch it multiple times. Is try and find your team, attempt to teach what you think you learned, and then take them over and show them the VT systems so that they can experience it for themselves. When it comes to your sales presentations, certainly look at how can you make it more you-focused than I-focused. Always have a good opening and a congratulations, and always at the end tie your presentation up in a bow. Again, thank you for the opportunity to discuss, and always ask what is the next logical step for them. You either ask them what they think the next step is, or you suggest what the next step is. Tony and I, you know what our recommendation next step is: go over to the system. And Tony, what is your walk-away line or advice?
Well, it's walk-away line is the plan. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. It's a little twist to the golden rule. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. In other words, adjust your selling style to fit the customer's buying style. Do I go faster or slower? Do I focus initially on the task or the relationship? So that really is it, Patricia. I think you summarized it as well as I possibly could have. So that's my final pointer.
Thank you, and you will be invited to our next sales series webinar on May the 17th. If you signed up for this, we will invite you to that, and it is with Don Hudson, and we will be talking about selling value. And certainly, just like Tony and I, Don is a Hall of Fame keynote speaker and a very seasoned best-selling author and sales trainer. So with that, remember Fripp. However, much more important than remembering Fripp, remember what Fripp stands for. Frequently reinforce ideas that are productive and profitable. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dr. Tony.
Thank you, Patricia and Paul. Appreciate it. And thanks for everybody coming. See ya.